Hello, dear viewers. Motorcycles play a rather important role in some movies. For example, in the film The World's Fastest Indian, the Indian Scout of 1921, just like the main character played by Anthony Hopkins, who portrayed the legendary New Zealander Burt Munro. In other cases, the motorcycle does not claim the leading role, but it is still an important attribute, for example, emphasizing the coolness and toughness of the character who rides it, or complementing the atmosphere of a particular scene. There is a cult film series called Terminator.
Hasta la vista, baby.
6 feature films have already been released on the big screen, and in these movies, there was enough screen time to showcase two-wheeled vehicles. The quality of the films in this series is debatable. Personally, I only acknowledge the first, you could say, canonical 2 parts, Terminator from 1984 and the sequel, Terminator 2, Judgment Day from 1991. But motorcycles appeared not only in these 2 films. So why wait? You're on the Krasmoto channel, and in this episode, we'll talk about the motorcycles from the Terminator movies. Enjoy watching. In our story, we'll go in the order the movies were released. And of course, we'll start with the very first Terminator. That very film with its dark atmosphere, neo-noir Los Angeles, and a ruthless killer robot. The first motorcycle you'll see in this movie is a Honda Elite, a Japanese scooter. It was on this little scooter that young Sarah Connor rode around, commuting between home and work. By the way, this is the first and only scooter in this review. It's worth noting that Sarah chose a rather elite means of transportation, and I'm not afraid to emphasize this point. Honda Elite is one of the most famous Honda scooters, and it may represent the scooter era of the 1980s more than any other model. The first model of this family debuted publicly in '83, and in '84, sales of the Model 125 began. It was the first mid-sized 4-stroke scooter, featuring a number of new technologies that had not previously been seen on regular scooters, such as a retractable headlight, a liquid-cooled engine, a digital instrument panel, and much more. Honda positioned it as having the appearance and features of the 21st century and as the best scooter for commuting to work. The Elite scooter family was produced up to and including the year 2010. It turns out that Sarah is quite the fashionista, since she chose a completely new and advanced model.
Go to hell, you jerk!
But Arnold Schwarzenegger in the first Terminator was put on another, no less legendary motorcycle from Honda. And this classic machine with an inline-4 engine, which took part in the chase, is a Honda CB750 from 1979. The Honda CB750 is a true motorcycle legend, and it is often hailed as the first superbike in human history. The CB750 was specially developed by Honda for the American market. As early as 1966-1967, Honda dealers started getting requests for motorcycles with larger engine capacities. In these engine capacities in the United States, Harley-Davidson, British Triumph, Norton, and BSA, German BMW, and Italian motorcycles dominated. In 1969, the general public was introduced to the king of motorcycles, and the Honda CB750 would serve as the starting point for the race of engine capacity and power among the Japanese Big Four. At that time, it was a super motorcycle, the first mass-produced inline-4 on a civilian motorcycle. 68 horsepower, a top speed of 200 kilometers per hour, as well as a high level of comfort and good brakes. These characteristics, combined with the price of $1,495, gave CB 750 a significant advantage over its competitors, especially the British ones. The motorcycle was produced for 10 years, and the total number that rolled off the assembly line exceeded 400,000. It should be admitted that the role of the motorcycle in the first Terminator is quite modest. For the average viewer, the moments from the second movie are much more memorable. And indeed, in the film Terminator 2, Judgment Day from 1991, even more models of vehicles appeared, and the screen time with two-wheelers increased.
What are you talking about, Uncle Vova? I doubt you're riding a moped in the village.
The most legendary moment is, of course, the chase when T-800 on a Harley saves young John Connor from the T-1000 in a truck. The Terminator acquires a motorcycle at the start of the film. Near the place where he appears, there is a biker bar, which is exactly where our pumped-up hero goes in search of clothes, boots, and a motorcycle.
I need your clothes, boots, and motorcycle.
Several motorcycles are visible in the parking lot before Arnie enters the bar, and the insert, from the point of view of the robot scanning the equipment, hints that after the clothes, the T-800 will definitely need a vehicle. Let's identify the motorcycle types in front of the sedan. There are 3. The scanner doesn't show any particular details. It gives out brand names and some unclear numerical model names. The first bike is a Harley-Davidson FXWG Wide Glide. The second, despite the machine vision labeling it a Yamaha, is a Harley-Davidson Shovelhead Custom Chopper. The third is also a Harley, but the exact model is unknown. Behind the sedan are Harley's FLH, TC, Electra Glide, Fat Boy, and Wide Glide. When scanning the motorcycle that the Terminator from the future will later ride, he makes a mistake. Arnie saddles up on an FLS-TF Fat Boy from 1991, but the scanner labels it as SLS-TS91 Fat Boy. The appearance of this motorcycle in the second Terminator made it iconic, and sales skyrocketed after the film's debut. In the first year after the model's debut, about 4,500 units were sold. A few years later, it was already several hundred thousand. There are several opinions about where the name Fat Boy came from. There is a theory that the name of this motorcycle refers to 2 atomic bombs, Fat Man and Little Boy, which were dropped by Americans on the Japanese cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki in August 45. The original Fat Boy's tank had a star with wings on both sides, the United States Air Force emblem. On the Fat Man bomb, there were yellow circles painted, and on the first generation FLSTF model, the yellow color is also present, and the design of the solid motorcycle wheels is very similar to those on the B-29 strategic bomber. However, this is just one of the versions of the origin of the model's name, which the Harley-Davidson company has never confirmed nor denied. Another simpler version suggests the motorcycle was called Fat Boy due to the shape of its fuel tank. Come with me if you want to live. The FLSTF Fat Boy debuted in 1990. One of the features of this motorcycle was the Softail frame, a chassis frame that uses a swinging arm with hidden springs as the rear suspension. This solution referred back to early Harley-Davidson models with rigid rear wheel mounting. The frame design was invented back in 1976 by Bill Davis, a talented engineer customizer and simply a Harley-Davidson enthusiast from Louisiana. After lengthy deliberations and experiments, the company implemented the chassis in 1984. The motorcycles produced in the early 90s had an engine with a displacement of 1,340 cubic centimeters. The new Evolution engine replaced the outdated Shovelhead. More powerful than its predecessor, it featured aluminum construction, though the sleeves remained cast iron. Improved cooling and higher quality manufacturing of parts allowed the Evolution engine to get rid of oil leakage problems. 3 Harley-Davidson Fat Boy motorcycles were used in the film. After filming was completed, all these motorcycles immediately went to museums. One of them ended up in Iron Arnie's personal collection, and another motorcycle is on display at the Hollywood Star Cars Museum in Gatlinburg, Tennessee. By the way, did you know that Cameron had a problem with the biker bar scene during filming? The studio asked not to shoot it, citing the increasing budget. One of the bosses even talked to Schwarzenegger, asking him to convince Cameron, but Arnold refused, saying the following quote, "Only some office bore from the studio would suggest cutting a scene like that." The second motorcycle involved in the chase, as well as in several previous scenes, is the personal bike of young John Connor. This is a Honda XR100 from 1990, a lightweight off-road motorcycle with a 4-stroke engine, a displacement of 90 cubic centimeters, and a power output of 10 horsepower. This model debuted on the market in 1985 and was intended for beginner motorcyclists. In America, such bikes were quite popular among young people. John is one of them, and the choice of bike for a young guy like him is quite obvious. This motorcycle was produced for 20 years, and during that time it hardly changed at all. In the scene where the T800 pulls into the parking lot near the arcade, you can spot several motorcycles in the background. Among them, I was able to recognize a Kawasaki Ninja 600 and a Kawasaki ZZR 600. The last significant motorcycle that appears in the second Terminator is a police Kawasaki KZ-1000P of 84th year. The liquid T-1000, portrayed by Robert Patrick, rides this motorcycle to the Cyberdyne building. The T-1000 makes the jump from the building window into the helicopter on the Kawasaki KZ-1000P motorcycle. It is a classic American police motorcycle. During the first half of the 20th century, American police forces used locally produced motorcycles, mostly Harley-Davidson and Indian. However, Japanese motorcycles from the 1960s and 1970s, along with some European models, gained preference. So, Kawasaki firmly occupied the niche of supplying equipment to police departments. It all started in 1975 with a 900 cubic centimeter Z1 model, and already in 1978, the KZ-1000C Police was introduced, a motorcycle specially developed for the police, designed to compete with Harley. The most popular model was the KZ-1000P Police. With various minor changes, it was produced from 1982 to 2005. The motorcycles were single-seaters, fully equipped for law enforcement with sirens, flashing lights, radios, saddlebags, and other necessary gear. Let's move on to the third film, Terminator 3: Rise of the Machines, released in 2003. There are only two motorcycles featured in this film. The first is an Indian Chief from 2002, which the Terminator steals from the police near the veterinary clinic. The motorcycle is part of the chase with the crane. In the early 1900s, Indian Motorcycle Company was among the top motorcycle makers in the United States. In the early 1950s, the company was in debt and unable to compete with Harley-Davidson, leading to the end of motorcycle production in 1953. And already in the second half of the 2010s, a new life was breathed into the Indian brand by Polaris, which sacrificed the Victory brand. In the period between the 1950s and the 2010s, various businessmen and companies tried to revive the legendary brand. And as part of one of these attempts, namely from 1999 to 2003, Indian Motorcycle Company of America in Gilroy, California, produced a number of Indian Chief motorcycles. Initially, they used clones of Harley-Davidson Evolution engines assembled from S&S parts. Later versions used their own engine design called Power Plus. Several of these motorcycles were provided to law enforcement. The second motorcycle is a Triumph Bonneville America, which the grown-up John Connor rides. Here I want to point out a small inconsistency. Connor leads a rather marginal lifestyle, yet he has a brand new motorcycle. The Triumph Bonneville America was first produced in 2002, a year before the movie's 2003 release. This model was designed specifically for the United States market and differed from the regular Bonneville by having a reworked chassis. In the American version, the wheelbase was extended by up to 6.29 inches, making the motorcycle longer overall. The seat was lowered by 56 millimeters, and the steering head angle was increased by 4.3 degrees. These changes turned the classic British Roadster into a motorcycle with cruiser character and handling, which is exactly what's needed for endless American highways. The action of the fourth part, Terminator Salvation, takes place entirely in the future. In this film, two-wheeled Moto-Terminators appear. In this picture, you can see an early concept of a Moto-Terminator, into which an anthropomorphic robot was integrated. However, the final concept ended up being different. Of course, these automated two-wheeled machines, armed with machine guns, are entirely a product of the filmmaker's imagination and were created on a computer. That is, what we see on the screen has nothing to do with real motorcycle models. Ducati Hyper Motard. 1,100 motorcycles were used as the Moto-Terminators. Of course, with real riders, and then in post-production they were redrawn as Moto-Terminators. And the last motorcycle in today's review appears in the fifth film, Terminator Genisys. The fifth and sixth installments blatantly overuse beloved elements from earlier films, Schwarzenegger's T-800 iconic catchphrases and references. The filmmakers chose to add a technological reference. In one of the scenes, the legendary Harley-Davidson Fat Boy appears, but this time it's not the tough but kind T-800 riding it, but the evil John Connor. That's how life is turned upside down. At this point, my friends, my story ends. I tried to take a detailed look at all the motorcycles that appeared in the Terminator movie series. I hope the story turned out to be interesting and that you probably learned something new from it. How can you support my work? In general, you all know. Like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so yet, and share this episode with your friends and acquaintances. And be sure to leave a comment. Which film from the Terminator series impresses you the most, and which of the motorcycles discussed is the coolest? You can also suggest ideas for new episodes in the comments. Thanks for watching the Krasmodo channel. See you next time.